welcome in 1320 Kings Insider and creator of the Kings Beat, James Ham. James, last night was the greatest night in the history of your career, wasn't it?
It was perfect.
It wasn't it?
um,
It wasn't it? It was perfect. It was a perfect night. A perfect night. Uh-oh. James, we lost your microphone again. Sorry, James. That's all right. I'll just fill some time. James, your microphone's muted too. Like I know you're adjusting a few things over there. But James, see, they're trying to take our joy. James was just telling us we had a perfect night. Oh, we still gonna have a perfect day. Ain't nothing gonna change. Go ahead, James. James, you were saying it was a perfect night.
I'm back.
He can't hear me. Can you hear me,
I can
James?
hear you now.
Okay.
I can.
All right. Okay, good. You said the night was perfect.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? Look, I've been around to see quite a few like really fun games and big time performances and everything else. I just thought that Fox said it in the locker room. This was a perfect game. I think for this Kings team right now, what you wanted to do is show up on national TV and thump somebody. And I thought it was spectacular. I thought they had a good time. 7 guys scored in double figures, but like 13 out of the 14 guys who played scored. The one guy who didn't was Dellavedova, and he had 4 assists. This was just one of those games where, they ran up the score, but they could have kept going. And it was fun to watch a team sort of find their footing, find their success, and push through. And I know Mike Brown was waiting for this moment where he didn't have to worry about, the final seconds of a game yet again. It's good every once in a while to just get one of these and blow somebody out.
Um, for those just tuning in or who may be on the Odyssey app or the radio, there was no media availability today for the players. But were you able? Do we have an update on Keegan Murray at all?
No, I reached out. I haven't been checking a ton to make sure that we got the latest update, but there's nothing like that I've been able to come across yet. It was kind of quiet and like they didn't have anything like for us last night at all, really, outside of sore back. I
Yeah.
saw the play where it looked like it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know,
Kind of grabbed over, kind of was reaching around, almost like he was holding his stomach, but he was holding his side, and it
yeah,
turns out he was probably holding his back.
yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good. So we're gonna have to wait and see how how quickly he reacts to treatment and stuff. I'll guess that if it is like a true muscle pull or something in that back, he's probably going to miss a handful of games. So, we don't know anything yet, but as soon as we figure it out, I'll pass the news along. Hopefully, we'll get something here while I'm on the air with you.
James, there's so many different things we could talk about from last night's game. The Beam got some attention on national television. Stan Van Gundy and that crew were just talking glowingly about Mike Brown and De'Aaron Fox as well. But partially due because of Keegan Murray's absence, we saw Terrence Davis step in and have an absolutely massive game for this team that was triggered by a defensive lapse 15 seconds into the second quarter in which Mike Brown called one of those very famous quick timeouts, got into Terrence Davis a little bit, in which he responded to immediately, and the game completely shifted after that.
Yeah, that initial play was so bad. Both Chimezi Metu and Terrence Davis both went one way and left a shooter wide open for a three. Mike Brown had enough 15 seconds in. Look, Terrence Davis is one of those guys that on occasion is going to be lightning in a bottle. He's erratic. I mean, that's who he is as a player. It's who he has been his whole career. But when he's right, he's really tough to compete with. I mean, 7 of 9 from 3. And the crazy thing is, that's the third time in his career, and he's only been in the league, 4 years, that he's hit 7 threes.
Mm.
So, yeah, he's a guy that can light it up quickly. And I thought it wasn't just that. It was that he brought energy everywhere. Like he was in the passing lanes. He got a bunch of deflections. He got a couple of steals. They went on that 16-0 run there in the second quarter, which was just spectacular. And of those 16, I think 10 were Terrence Davis. So yeah, every once in a while you're gonna have him have one of these games, but that's kind of the spirit of this team. It doesn't matter who you are, you be ready, and you might get to have one of those games. We've seen it with Monk, we've seen it with Davion Mitchell, we've seen it with Trey
Mhm.
Lyles. Even I'll put Harrison Barnes in that group now too. Like every once in a while, someone's gonna have a big game, and you need it, and it was big.
And what does that say about this team that the fact we're 13 games into the season, Kenny just said something similar, where you can point to a Davion Mitchell game, a Terrence Davis game, a Malik Monk game, a Harrison Barnes game. Like you've had guys step up in a major way every single night for this team.
Yeah, I think what it says is that Mike Brown's mentality of keeping everyone engaged and ready is working. Early in the season, he tinkered way too much, but when you're tinkering, you're giving everyone an opportunity to play, and I think guys are having a good time. They like each other, and they're staying ready. Even guys like Alex Len, who hasn't really played hardly at all. I spoke to him in the locker room before the game last night. He's like, I'm just staying ready, man. I'm ready. I got this. Like, if my number's called, I'll be ready to go in. And we saw him. What does he hit, like a crazy jumper, and then he gets a dunk. It's just good to see. It's good to see everybody like staying ready, and that's a mentality that this team hasn't had, and they haven't had the depth that this team has either. So when you have sort of that mentality and depth, then it's a good thing. You can go to the bench when something isn't working and try to find something that is. And I think Mike Brown is pushing all the right buttons at this point.
83 bench points yesterday. Even if you take Keegan Murray, if you take Terrence Davis's 31 out of the equation because he wound up starting the second half for Keegan Murray, that's still an incredibly impressive 52. That's it was just a season high 39 assists. Like everything clicked, and we wondered, James, yesterday, could the Kings show out on social media or could the Kings show out on national television? Um, and the one thing we didn't get, and I think he recognized this early and found other ways to work, was De'Aaron. I thought De'Aaron was going to have a coming out party last night, and it just didn't materialize. Though many of us here, we saw things in that game, particularly the mic'd up clips of De'Aaron talking to Terrence Davis and De'Aaron talking to some of his teammates, where it's like, yeah, this dude is a leader. We've asked about it for years, and now he clearly has emerged as a leader on this team.
Yeah, I mean, I'll point it out too. Like we keep like I think some people think that Fox is better when he's averaging 15 to 20 points and 9 assists, 8 9 assists. But in this season alone, we've seen like 3 or 4 of those games, and then we've seen like the rest of the games, the other like 9 games, have been where De'Aaron Fox is just spectacular offensively. You need all of those. You need every single version of De'Aaron Fox if you're going to win in a season. And I think this season more than ever, we're seeing that he's being able to make the adjustment and sort of sense what his team needs from one night to the next. And it's not something that was there before, I don't think. I think every single game he thought he needed to take over to get the win. And now we're seeing him okay. He's okay with having a quiet offensive night if it leads to a victory, and it's a sign of growth. But it's something you'd hope you'd see eventually, and now we're kind of see it playing out on the court.
You're listening to D'Lo and KC on KIFM West Sacramento 98.5 FM, KRX QHD2 Sacramento, ESPN 1320, driven by Lasher's Elk Grove Dodge. Always live on the free Odyssey app. KC had to dip out a little bit early. James Ham, kind enough to join me here for the final hour of the program, as he does each Wednesday. There's been a lot of talk about, could this be the year that De'Aaron Fox is an all-star? Could this be the year that he takes that step to the bigger stage? And man, James, like as much as I love everything De'Aaron Fox is doing, I hope that all-star consideration is there for him. It really feels like Domantas Sabonis is working on all-star nod number 3 right now.
Yeah, I mean, what would be the chance of the Kings having 2 All Stars?
Oh, I mean, if their record is good enough, I mean, it seems preposterous, but like looking at what Domas has done, particularly over the last like 7 or 8 games, I mean, Will Z put the numbers up for us earlier. It was like 21, 12. The percentages were like 60, 40, and 75. And I think there's 6 assists in there. Just ridiculous numbers.
Yeah, I mean, he's an incredible talent, and I think for me, what I've noticed is a couple of things. Number one, he's not in foul trouble anymore. That's big. You know, 3 of the first 6 games he fouled out. I think his teammates are doing a much better job of keeping guys on the perimeter and not making him be the help defender that's kind of on an island and picking up cheapies. That's big. So I do think this team is getting a little bit better defensively, and that's how we're going to be able to see it. But I also think that Sabonis in the first week of the season went up against whether they're the best or they're just the biggest. He went up against Nurkic. He went up against Steven Adams. Valanciunas. Well, maybe not Valanciunas. Who did he, he went up against all of the big guys, the big, strong muscle guys. Then comes the lightweight,
Yeah.
yeah, the shot blocking guys, and he's just tearing them up. Like this other version that of NBA center, he's just dominating. He's pushing them all over the court and going right at them, and that's opening up everything else. It really is. He's being able to crush down the defense. He finds guys perfect with perfect passes every single time. Herder is shooting some ungodly number off passes from Sabonis.
80.8%.
Yeah, I mean that's just ridiculous. I mean, for anyone to shoot 80% even on layups, that's really really incredible at the NBA level, and for that to be off of 3-point attempts, right? Isn't he
Yeah.
like
21 of
21 of
26.
yeah 21 to 26? Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. So I like what I'm seeing, but I kept telling you guys early on, the offensive numbers have been showing that this is who they are the whole time. They just hadn't had the one game to blow the top off of it and make the numbers push them into right now they're number 2 in offensive rating in the NBA. But that was showing up in the stats, like true shooting and effective field goal percentage. They're in the top 4. Assist percentage, assist to turnover ratio, all of these numbers, they're really, really high up. And I think that we're seeing a lot of really interesting things from Mike Brown's offense. It's just the tip of the iceberg. Like, he just installed this offense. So there's going to be 12 variations of the same exact play. And at this point, there are 4 variations. And so it's only going to get better and better and better as these guys get more comfortable with each other. And I think that that's really, really exciting because, the worst thing to be in the NBA is boring. And I guess worse than that is to be boring and bad. And this team is not boring at all. Even if they're at 0-4, they weren't boring. They were still an
Yeah.
exciting team to watch.
Yeah.
If we can see them pick up these 2 wins and all of a sudden 3 games above 500, and they're exciting, then you're going to see a lot more chatter about multiple TNT games, about, what's going to happen next with this group, how much De'Aaron Fox has improved. He's going to start becoming the media darling that, really he has been a couple of times throughout his career, but that is maybe more sustainable.
And this doesn't feel like an overreaction, James. Like the way that the fan base is reacting, the way that we're reacting today, even though we're purposely being obnoxious because this is an amazing feeling following that game on national television. And we saw everybody and their tweets and their thoughts on this team. Some people who may have been watching them for the first time. As fun as all of that is, I don't feel like having a good vibe or good feelings or being really optimistic about this Sacramento Kings team is an overreaction at all. I don't think it's just the 7 of 9 sample size. I think it's the full 13 game sample size where you look at, like you just said this, even at 0-4, they weren't boring. Even at 0-4, they weren't bad. They were competitive in those games. They had the frustrating loss against the Clippers. They had a game that just didn't really materialize against Memphis, but they weren't bad in any of those. And the fact that now we're seeing what were once close losses amounting to wins, which is a conversation that we've had many times on this show, I think it adds validation to that feeling like, no, you're perfectly You're a perfectly rational human being for thinking this team is good.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, Mike Brown likes to look at the season in 5 game increments, right? For some reason, this season, right now, the first handful of games, it breaks down into 4 game increments. So like you had the 0-4, and then you had like the 2-2 or the 2-3. Then you have 4 straight wins. It really does it shows you where they were at the beginning, where they're a team who was learning how to win. Then you found a team that like they were competing, but they needed to figure out how to win. Then they started to figure out how to win, and they took a couple of brutal losses, absolutely brutal. I mean, again, they've won 7 out of 9, and the 2 losses are oops, sorry about that from the NBA's on the last 2 minute report.
Mhm.
But in those moments, they're figuring out how to win. Now we're seeing a team really take the next step where they're embracing winning. They're figuring out how to string wins together. They're figuring out how they can still have improvement off what they're already doing. And again, I think we're going to see the offense continue to get better, whether they put up 153 points or not. It's about efficiency. It's about like just being better and like in a rhythm and getting more players involved. And then on top of that, the defense will quietly get better. And while they've dropped down to like, I think they're 26 in defensive rating, they're still at this same exact 114 defensive rating they have been the whole season. So other
Mhm.
teams are showing that they might be a little bit better defensively, but I think the Kings are also showing that they're not taking strides like these major strides, but they are getting stops when they need them and they are progressing.
Stan Van said yesterday on the show that you can already see the team improving. There's slight improvements on the defensive end. And sometimes on defense, that's what you're going to see. You're going to see slight improvements. You just want those slight improvements to continue. On the offensive side, you can often see big jumps. And I think that's what we're seeing here. And it should also be stated, I think we mentioned this earlier, Monty McNair constructed this all beautifully. Like Domantas Sabonis is the nucleus of everything, and people had screamed and screamed to get shooters on this team, get shooters on this team, and I, we, it's not as simplistic as just getting someone who could hit a shot because he's doing a fine job in Indiana. Buddy Hield is a shooter. That's what he would be constituted as in the league. But you need guys who can make other plays. You need guys who could take smart shots, who can make smart threes, who can make other basketball plays, and that's what Kevin Herter has turned out to be. That's what Malik Monk has turned out to be. That's what Keegan Murray has turned out to be. But I just love how Domantas Sabonis is like the nucleus of everything that is happening on the offensive end. That's
Yeah,
where it feels like the big jump is coming from is from him.
I totally agree. I mean, we talked about the stat with Herder, but I'll also point out like the difference between like, and this isn't like such a call out on Buddy Hield, just the difference between what I'm seeing from Herder and what I saw from Buddy is Herder has hit a 3 pointer in all 13 games. In 8 of the games, he's hit 4 or more threes. Like, he doesn't have the 0 for 12 or the 0 for 9 and then the 7 of 8.
Yeah.
So if you can just balance everything out and be consistent, then your coach can start knowing what he can do game in and game out to build around you. And I think that that's just what this team has lacked for so long is players who put consistent numbers up. It's really tough, again, Sabonis, you're right now you're penciling in like 20, 12 and 6. I mean, that's crazy, but I mean, you're not penciling it in. You're writing in pen. You know that that's what you're going to get from him.
Mhm.
Fox, you're putting in, 24 and 6 with the variable that he could go up to 35, but worst case scenario, he might be down to 18, but if he gives you 18, he's going to give you 10 assists. So there's all these like variables that you can start to work with a little bit, but at least you have some base numbers that you can put in. And the more of those players you have, the better you are. And Kevin Herter's instantly stepped into a role where he's become that guy, but I think Malik Monk is stepping into that too, where you're starting to be able to like consistently figure out what he's going to do. And I think Trey Lyles is giving you consistent minutes. You're having some ups and downs, but overall he's been really solid. So I think it's interesting the way that this team is being how it was built. I think it's still lacking like a major piece as far as like a shot blocker that can help Sabonis because that's been the biggest issue. But Sabonis is like he's just been tremendous, and he's been the ringleader for everything on both ends of the court. And they're still just learning each other. He's only played 28 games with this team, and that's not even accurate because of the like 13 games this season. Sure, he's played with these guys, but last year when he played 15 games, it really wasn't with most of these players. We're
Mhm.
getting to see him sort of hit a new level, and I think he's only going to get better.
My favorite thing about Kevin Herter right now, James, is everyone who writes about the Kings or who writes something about the Kings will note Kevin Herter's insane 3-point percentage right now, which is above 50%. And then they'll tag it with, there's no way that can continue. But if he, stays anything close to that, if he stays in the four, that's an amazing percentage. And I look at the way Kevin Herter plays and I go, why the hell can it not continue? And part of the reason I understand that, 50+% from three is insane. But the way Kevin Herter shoots, I asked Kenny this question and I'll ask you, has Kevin Herter taken a bad shot one time this year? All of his shots seem to be within the flow of an offense, and maybe not in like a basketball chart, but his shots feel like high percentage shots, particularly for him. And I feel like, yeah, why can't he make? Okay, if 50 is too high, like I'm starting to look at Kevin Herter like he's going to lead the league in 3-point shooting when these 82 games are done.
Yeah, I think if he ends up anywhere between like 45 and like 52, that would be absolutely
That's
incredible.
incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
That's an incredible number.
But the offense really does dictate that. It does. I mean, like the draw and kick offense and having Sabonis in the middle of the key, it's just tremendous. I mean, you can do so many different things with this. And again, we're only seeing like the tip of the iceberg. They're just learning where Herter likes his hot spots, where he likes to shoot from and how he wants to deliver a ball, like everyone is different and I really do think it's only going to get better. I think the only concern that I would have is we've seen it like Herter's had one bad game, and as far as shooting, it was the Golden State Warriors game the first time, and even in that game, that was the second night of a back to back, if I'm not mistaken. I want to see what he looks like with multiples of those because we haven't seen that, and the way he runs around the track meet that is that shooting guard position, and how active he is. Like, do those back to backs wear on him a bit? Does he have like, will there be times where he has quieter nights and he doesn't have his legs? And that's a possibility. And that's where, a game like that, two games like that, where your your 3-point percentage creeps down just a little bit. But hey, I think he's been great. Everything about him has been really, really fun to watch. Yeah, that's a good stat right there by Will Z.
Will Z says 81 of his 95 threes have been open or wide open. In that Warriors game that you're referencing, that was on the second night of that Clippers back to back, he was 3 of 14 and 1 of 8 from three. It puts his percentage in even more incredible context. He had a game where he was 1 of 8 and he's still shooting over 50% from three.
Even early in the season, that was what, game three, game
Game
four?
three? No, it was game three. You're
Yeah,
right.
so game three, he shot that 1 of 8 and was still
Mhm.
over 50% on the season at that point, which is incredible. Like after missing seven threes, he was still over 50% after
He
the
was
first two games.
He was 5 of 8 the night before against the Clippers, and he was 6 of 9 against Portland.
Yeah. So 5 of
Amazing.
8, what, 13
Yeah.
to 17? Something like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Like if you, I would, a fun exercise. What would his percentage be if you took the Warriors 1 of 8 game out and the Memphis 1 of 4 game out?
Yeah. Well, that's
He
pretty
he
crazy.
shot 10 threes against Charlotte and made 5 of them. He was a guy I really, really liked last year in Atlanta. And I was excited when that deal was done to land him. I did not expect this at all. Like not even close.
Yeah, I expected this. I expected him to flourish in this role. Like how much he was going to flourish, but remember, I kept telling you guys he only shot like 5.3 3-point attempts last year. If you could get him up to 8, he's going to average 17 points a game. If you can get him there and you can get him averaging one more free throw per game or 1.5 3-point free throws per game more, he's going to be between 16 and 18 points, and he has potential to score 20 a game. And it's 20 a game without even like pushing him, without even asking him to do something outside of what he does. I just think by adding more shots to him and more opportunity, he's going to flourish. And he's got just this really laid back, deadpan personality. I think he's perfect for this team.
Mhm.
Like really, he does. He just kind of fits in. Like whatever, you know. He came in singing during De'Aaron Fox's post game, not last game, but the two nights before, and I think he was singing Country Rose. Anyway, I found it humorous. Like he
Not
came
on my
in
playlist.
singing. Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, having guys like that. I mean, because Malik is a big personality. So having like a guy like Kevin Herter who could potentially be who may have like a big personality but is like a little bit more reserved, like that stuff balances out and it helps form. We talk about identities on a basketball floor a lot. And what's the identity of the team? What's the identity of the team? This might be the first time in God knows how long that this team actually has a personality. Everybody remembers the scores, but the scores lasted like a minute and a half, and then that thing was over. Like this team has like a true personality to it. And you saw that with, Band-Aids in the stands last night, chance of light the beam. The beam is definitely a thing now in Sacramento, and it might be a thing in the NBA following last night's game. Like this team as in the Sacramento Kings finally has a personality.
Hey, I have tried to get these guys for years to figure things out when it comes to connecting the players to the fan base. And I don't know what it is. I mean, clearly there's been a million different people who do the role of marketing for this club over the last, this is my 13th year. But like, I went to them at one point. I'm like, look, you got the San Francisco Giants, which I'm not a Giants fan. I've been very clear about that. But like, how much fun was the Lincecum mullet, right? So they did giveaways, but then you could also go buy them at the team store. So you got all these people wearing the mullet, the panda hat. Like, how much fun did people have buying panda hats and wearing those to games? The Kings have never figured out how to like market this team. Not since back in 2001, 2, 3, when everyone in Sacramento lined up at Carl's Jr. to buy a Western Bacon combo and get their bobblehead, right?
Yeah.
So like, how do you package this team up and sell them to your fan base, and how do you connect them, and how do you get kids involved and excited? And it's
Band-Aids that say
band
light the beam.
Band-Aids, the beam. How about a Kevin Herter headband night?
There you go.
So you can do headband Herter. Like even when
Band Herder.
yeah, headband Herter night. Like when
I love it.
but when DeMarcus was, I mean, not DeMarcus, when De'Aaron was young, you couldn't have come up with a spiky hat thing for him, like a giveaway, or how they have like the basketball hoop upside down
Mhm.
on top of people's heads and stuff. Like, why couldn't you have come up with a De'Aaron Fox like spiky haired hat to sell to your fans? And they just haven't been able to do it. So I hope that they're buying in and they're letting this team sort of like, it's organic what's happening, which is good because then it's not forced. But I still would like them to figure out a way to get the younger crowd involved with the team, and let them have favorite players who have these weird personalities, and let them shine a little bit.
James Ham Fedora night. I think that
That's
would
right.
be a good night.
That's right.
Fedora Ham. Gilbert asked, "Can we start wearing crowns?" Like, I'm all for start wearing crowns. By the way, James and I were talking before the game, and James, I was standing next to you. I said, "Boy, Doug looks really focused on whatever he's looking at over there on his computer." And I went over there and said hello to him. And you know what DC told me? He was the scout for Brooklyn. That's why he was locked in on film.
Oh,
That's why he was
that's his
so
scout.
focused. And I told him, I said, okay, I know the storyline if the Kings can't get it done tonight. So Coach Christie didn't have the scout ready. So we got to give Doug all the props in the world because Brooklyn was his scout and they won by 32.
Yeah, isn't that a good moment for Doug? I didn't know he had the scout.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty crazy. Yeah, that was just a spectacular. I mean they understood the tendencies. They understood that the only one that could beat you was KD, and he couldn't beat you by himself. So take away everybody else, and if he has a somewhat strong night, that's fine. But then when Harrison Barnes matched him like point for point early on, you're like, no, this game's over.
Kevin Durant got beat so bad, he just started talking to everybody last night after the game.
Yeah,
Everybody had a Kevin Durant piece drop this morning. I was like, oh my God.
yeah, he became like the Oprah of like handing out disses, like you get a diss and you get a diss. like,
Kings broke Kevin Durant.
like, have you seen the team I'm playing with? It's like,
Like, Jesus, like
yeah, it's
Inkster
a
had an article, Chris Haynes had an article, friggin' Shams had an article about Ben Simmons. It's like, wow, the Kings did this. They
yeah.
broke the Brooklyn Nets. It wasn't
Oh,
Kyrie, it was the Kings. Kings broke Brooklyn.
I thought that was such a great line too. Did you see that one where he said something to the effect of, "People are accusing me of not being a good leader because I can't help this guy out." He's like, "I can't convince that guy to get his vaccine. I can't convince him to not do the things that he's doing. To not do it. Like, why would I like?" Who in their right, like, what leader could? This guy
Yeah.
does whatever he wants to do. That has nothing to do with me. I'm just trying to sit here and play basketball. He's like, why do you think I asked to leave? Because
Mm-hmm.
I like, you know what though? I think it brings us to a bigger conversation about like, is this the death of the super team? And how much do these guys deserve the death of the super team? Like you're messing with the basketball gods. Uh, you've put these teams together that are just supposed to roll over everybody and win instant championships, and now you're stuck. AD's stuck. LeBron's stuck. Like James Harden was stuck, and
Yeah.
now if that team's not great, maybe it's Embiid who's stuck with a guy who's not really an all star anymore. I don't know, but I think it's really interesting how quickly these things have spun out and become an issue. And good for you, KD. You asked for this. Like, oh well.
It's yeah, it is fascinating. It will be because it's happening at the same time. Brooklyn being as bad as they are with just a phenomenal amount of dysfunction. And the Lakers, the same thing. The Lakers, I don't think are dysfunctional. They're just bad. It'll be interesting how teams like LA, because they're going to try to do it again. How teams look at signing multiple stars, especially when you realize not all of these guys fit together. Like this isn't. I think people have the Olympic basketball thing in mind, where you just get all this talent together and you can go out there and win, forgetting that your 12th man on an Olympic roster is a starter on any of the 32 teams in the NBA. And whereas on the Lakers, the Nets, it's not. The Philadelphia 76ers, it's not. Like you're scraping the G League here when you've got three guys making $100 million each. Brooklyn's a mess. Brooklyn would have been so great with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and the team that they had. But they blew it up for James Harden, and they're never going to recover from that. Anthony Davis, the Los Angeles Lakers, essentially went all in to win a championship. They thought they were winning multiple championships. Turns out they went all in to win the bubble title. And I don't think they're getting another one. Like that's it. That's a good point. I don't think it's the death of the super team because I think everyone's going to continue. Those teams are going to continue to try. But I think it might be the depth of how we look at teams like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I also think that it was a very specific group of superstars that were all very close, right? So like the LeBron James group with Bosh and Wade, but also Chris Paul, like
Mm-hmm.
all of these stars they were all close friends off the court, and I think it created some of these super teams, just like these other relationships that they've had. And I'm not sure that every era is going to be that way because like Fox's group, they're really close. Like him and Donovan and Bam Adebayo, like they all still talk. They all have text threads and stuff like that. But at the same time, they don't feel like they're they're all conspiring to get to the same spot. Like, and it just feels like that one group of players. They got into it, and then all of a sudden, like everyone else had to try to match it, and I just don't know that it's possible. Like, I think you're much better building a team organically, like what the Golden State Warriors did, where you
Or the
draft really
Sacramento
well.
Kings.
Yeah,
We're building organically with Domas and De'Aaron and Keegan as the super team.
yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. But, like if you look at the Warriors and, they drafted Steph, they drafted Clay, they drafted Draymond, they
Yeah.
drafted like so many of the players that play meaningful minutes for them, Looney and Poole and all these guys. And then when you add someone great, that's amazing. When you're able to add KD, it gets you an extra two
But
championships.
that's like such a unique note to that story
It is.
because you land Kevin Durant because you landed Steph on the greatest extension in the history of professional sports. The greatest bargain in the history of professional sports. You signed Steph Curry to a fair market deal the year before he exploded as the greatest shooter we've ever seen. And that carried you for years and years and years. It carried you to the point where you could land a Kevin Durant. But after that, you were able to turn that salary into so many different things that are still helping you now, like Andrew Wiggins, like that. You had think he had D'Angelo Russell was there for like a split second, right? Like you had so many different things going on, all because of that one particular deal. We point to the Warriors because of the way that they drafted, but in that sense, I don't think that can ever happen again. I
It's
don't.
Yeah.
I mean, it would literally be dumb luck if that were ever to replicate itself again.
Well, I mean, you joked about the Kings being that, right? But if you look at the way that they're built right now, like they're going to be able to pay Sabonis, and they will be able to pay Fox, like again when his contract comes up in 4 years, whether it's a supermax or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they'll be able to just keep building on those things, but it takes the Kevin Herter contract. It takes the Malik Monk $10 million contract. And it takes young players. It takes that you have Keegan Murray on a reasonably scaled contract, even though he's a rookie, number 4 pick. So it's going to be like 7, 9. He'll make 10, 11 million bucks by the end of his contract. But even when the salary cap's at 150 million, you're looking at like 7.5% of the salary cap is tied up in this one guy, where you can have two guys that make 30% of the salary cap and each and still be able to survive. But you just have to be smart and savvy everywhere else.
We'll come back, James. We talked a lot about the game last night, rightfully so. It was a tremendous night for Sacramento. It was a tremendous night for Mike Brown and the Kings. I want to talk a little bit about Mike Brown as well, but let's look ahead. A couple of interesting games coming up. San Antonio tomorrow night. You got the Detroit Pistons in town on Sunday afternoon. We'll dive into that as we return here. James Ham with us on D'Lo and KC on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320. All righty. Oh, that's right. Yeah, we'll give tickets right after the break. And we got Kings tickets for those that are watching. We got tickets right after the break.
Nice.
Detroit basketball. Yeah. Yeah.
How long are we on break?
17 or so. Yeah, we're on break. Break from the radio. Get those orders in. DeLoandKC.com. Use the promo code SENSATIONAL for King's Legacy items. We've got 32 minutes left before the sale ends, and the off-white hoodie disappears.
Ooh. Yeah, John Bull is mentioning the salary cap too. The salary cap in the NBA is going to skyrocket. And the fact that you have Fox under contract, you have Herter under contract for another 3 years after this year is nuts. Okay, hang on one sec.
Right on, Tyler. Appreciate you, man. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I know you got a lot of them, Tyler, man. We appreciate that. Mark, I saw you grabbed yours. We appreciate everybody. It's 47 orders. That's nothing like this has ever happened before. So thank you, guys. Yeah, Eric, they fit true to size. Like I wear a large in our hoodies and they're really comfortable. Kenny likes a little bit more slimmer, so he gets mediums.
Chris Herrera, that's a good question. Um, where was it
Oh
at?
yeah, I see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mike Brown's gonna go game to game. It depends on the game. So, TD, uh, Trey Lyles. I mean, we also have to see how long he's going to be out. We don't know at this point, but I think I will get an update. It will just come right after the show, unfortunately.
They hit the road after Sunday, don't they?
Yeah, they got 3 games surrounding the holiday. So it's
Yeah.
Memphis, Atlanta, and another quality team. I don't know why. I just wrote it just to.
Hawks.
Yeah, so it's Memphis, Atlanta.
Oh, Celtics.
Oh, in
They're
Boston.
in, they're in
Yeah,
Boston.
yep.
Yeah, on the Friday they're in Boston.
Yeah. So they do Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday surrounding Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Oh man, that's gonna be tough. That's gonna be tough.
That's funny, Shaky.
I'm guessing they're spending Thanksgiving Day in Boston. That's not fun.
Yeah. Well, they're in Atlanta before.
Yes.
Yeah. Um. Hmm.
Yeah, I think you'd fly out of it. I mean, it's well, I guess you could. I guess you could fly Thursday morning, but
No.
still, I figured you'd fly
Oh.
after Atlanta just to get there. Even though the guys might like Atlanta better than Boston.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I don't remember when we did it, but we definitely did do it. Don't worry about the post though. If that's what you're looking for it for, don't worry about it. It's fine. Dude, Stacy's got the loudest. Oh my god, they're so loud. Like it's so. Did the lights just turn off? Oh, look at that! Look at
Oh
that
yeah.
spotlight. Hey now,
D-Lo after
Yeah,
after
maybe,
ni- after midnight.
maybe I didn't move enough. How much time do we have? All right, hang on.
Uh. That's a good question, Curtis. I'm gonna say roster, the current team is better. Well, is more talented, but whether they win or not, like, is yet to be seen. And I'm refilling my tea.
Coming back, James. All right, 2 quick notes here, both really, really good things. Thing number 1, go to DLoandKC.com, use the promo code
Sensational.
Use the promo code
Sensational.
sensational to get 32% off of your order. Anything from the Kings Legacy Collection gets you 32% off in honor of the 32-point win last night. Use the promo code.
Sensational.
And if you're just tuning in, there is no chance. If the Kings beat the San Antonio Spurs by 35, nope. If they beat them by a 50%, we're never doing this again. This was like a one and done to celebrate on national television. We'll have sales again, but nothing like a 32% off sale. So you've got about 25 minutes to get that and grab the Off-White tribute hoodie in black, because at 4 o'clock, that thing disappears from the website. Thing number 2, that's DLO1KC.com. Thing number 2, this Sunday, the Kings take on Detroit, and we've got tickets for you right now. Caller number 3, 916-909-1320. We'll get you all set up. You can come and cheer Marvin Bagley in his return to Sacramento on Sunday afternoon. Again, the Kings versus Detroit. Caller number 3 right now, 916-909-1320. James, I'm going to put this question up on the screen because I thought your answer was interesting. Chris asked, Ham with Keegan likely out with an injury, who do you think will fit into the starting lineup tomorrow night versus San Antonio?
Okay. Spurs go smaller at the 3. So I think the Kings will probably go with someone like Terrence Davis and just kind of round it out that way. I mean, it's always possible Malik Monk gets a start and they push Herter over to the 3. But I think they like Monk as the lightning rod off the bench. So that would be my thought. But I believe that over the course of, if he's going to miss multiple games, we'll probably end up seeing, everything from Trey Lyles to, maybe Monk gets to start, maybe Davion gets to start one. You just don't know. It's going to depend on matchups.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, you got Memphis and you've got Atlanta. Like, who do you want defending, like, Trey and Ja? Is it going to be Fox the whole time? Do you want to mix it up? You know what I mean? So you're going to look at the opponent and try to make adjustments accordingly.
And as we've seen all year, Mike's not afraid to make adjustments. Like, you could have a starter play who, you know what? No, you know what? This didn't work. 90 seconds in. Let's try this. Let's go here. Let's do it. Mike will adjust pretty quick, and he is not bashful about it at all.
No, but again, I think that's a good thing for this team. It's kept everyone ready. It's kept them on their toes. Everyone is prepared. Everyone is mentally bought into the game plan. And so when they do come in, they're ready for what's going to happen. So, like, that's the hard thing. Like, if things aren't going well or someone gets in foul trouble and you've got to make an adjustment on the fly, you're just hoping that the guy that you're going to put in the game has done the same film study that you hope that he would do, that he's done the same reading on the scouting report. And I know everyone goes and sits down with a coach after they get done shooting and they go over some of the playbook, but that doesn't mean that, someone's sitting there paying attention and not just like staring off in the distance or wondering why everyone's wearing Band-Aids on their face while, he's sitting courtside and going through his walkthrough with guys, with the coaching staff. So, I think it's keeping guys ready and engaged. And I also think guys are buying into what their role should be in a game. And, we've talked about this with Chimezie Metu. But, like, I just keep feeling the same way. Like, Chimezie Metu can stay on the court as long as he keeps doing what he's doing and he's not making the big, huge mistakes and he's not doing things that just, you're not shooting threes at a 25% clip and keep shooting them. Then, keep him on the court. He's athletic. He's fun. He can do a lot of things. He might be a shot blocker if you let him stick in long enough. And maybe he can give you some of the things that you need. But that goes back to buying into what Mike Brown is selling and knowing what it is that your job is to do that night.
And tomorrow night's matchup is pretty interesting. San Antonio was a team that started the season really well. They were up there with the Utah Jazz, like, oh, look what they're doing. They were a team that was leading the league. They were either 1 or 2 in assists. Again, up there with the Utah Jazz. They were moving the ball around. They've come back down to earth quite a bit, losing 7 of their last 10. They might be settling into a little bit more of who we thought they were going to be before the season started. But what type of matchup do you think this is for Sacramento tomorrow? Because I made the argument it's a team you want to be aware of because they were playing pretty similar to Sacramento to start the season in the way that they were moving the ball and the way that they were trying to find guys to score for them.
Yeah, I have them at 7 of their last 8 they've lost,
Oh
San
my
Antonio. Yeah, 7
goodness!
of 8. They're on
And
a
and
2-game. Go ahead.
and the wild thing, the win
Milwaukee
it's
Bucks.
against Milwaukee. That's
Yeah,
wild.
and it came after a 2-point loss in overtime to the Memphis Grizzlies.
Mhm.
Like, so, if you ever walk into a game against a Greg Popovich coach team and think that you're just gonna like give half effort and pick up a win, then you shouldn't be in the league. That's just the way it is. Like Popovich's teams are so well coached. The guys fight. It's just at this point it's a lack of talent, and they know that a lack of talent, a lack of maturity, a lack of like seasoning for some of the guys. I think Devin Vassell will be a good guy, a good player. They've got some guys that I do like, but it's just going to take a little while, and they know that, and they're just like every other team that's in the hunt for Victor Wembanyama, and you just gotta see how it plays out. But this is a team that is exactly where you thought they would be. Actually, I didn't think they'd have 6 wins by this point.
Yeah.
And the Kings have 2 games in a row against guys that have lost. I think it's 7 of 8 or 8 of 9. And like if you're the Kings, they're just sitting there. They're sitting there for the taking. Like that's the one thing I'll point out about this team. They haven't lost to anyone that they should have beat
Mhm.
as so far this season. Like you can look at the Portland game, the first game of the season. Portland's a lot better than anyone thought they would be. The Kings have, the games that they've lost, you're like, okay, that's fair. Like, did you expect them to win that game? Did you expect them to beat the Heat twice? No. Did you expect them to beat the Warriors more than 1 out of 3 games? No. So, like, I think they're doing what, even that, like, you probably expect them to lose all 3 to the Warriors. You
Yeah.
expected them maybe to lose to the Nets, but the Nets have, the worm has turned there and, like, they're in trouble. But you got to get those wins, like against a team like the Nets. It's sitting there just waiting to be beat, and it's a good thing. We're seeing them stack up these wins against good teams, bad teams. It doesn't matter at this point. Even I think De'Aaron Fox said that last night. We don't care who we're playing. We're
That
ready. We think
that
we can beat anybody.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that line of thinking because we've often wondered if that's how they felt. We often wondered what they felt. We often wondered if they were like playing down to somebody. Um, the fact that they've got San Antonio and Detroit coming up after a win like you had last night, if nothing else, and I don't expect them to put up 153 over the course of the next 2 games or in each of the next 2 games, but I wonder what type of confidence comes out of that locker room on Thursday night, knowing what they did on national television and combining that. Like it's not Milwaukee that's here tomorrow. It's San Antonio. And it's one of those, with all due respect to San Antonio, it was a team that started 3-1. They went to 5-2, and it's that's not who they are anymore. Like it is completely gone down, as you noted, over the last 8 games or so. Entering that game with confidence, like get out here, play our way, and we know what it looks like when we play our way and beat this team up.
Yeah, I mean they're basically both Vassell and Keldon Johnson are having really really good good starts to the season.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, this isn't a team that should really scare you. They've got some players, but uh, you know, outside of being well coached, I'm not sure. Like you got to defend your man. You got to go through, just do what you're doing, what you've become accustomed to doing, and you should be just fine. Just don't play down to the level of the competition. And again, like I think it is good that Fox says we don't really care who we're playing, but at the same time, like a lot of players always say that, and then they go out and they lose to some of the worst teams that you've ever seen. Like this team lost badly last year to a Philadelphia team missing 5 starters.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
That was
like,
brutal.
yeah,
That
yeah,
was
that was
awful.
that was the beginning of the end, or the end of the end, or something like that.
There were a lot of ends last year. It was just like last year was just a season of one end after the other, starting with Puke Guy and then
Puke guy.
on to everything else. Um, and I guess that's the plus side with such a big roster turnover is like we remember all of that stuff. We remember bad losses. We remember 2 years ago when the team did this against this team, or when the team had this stretch against these, group of bad opponents. Shoot, you can even go to last year where the team played. I don't know that it was exactly the four worst teams in the league, but it was pretty close to the four worst teams in the league, and the Kings won like one. It was when Tristan Thompson dropped the 2-minute mixtape about losing to teams who aren't even trying to win. And a lot of those guys weren't even here for that. Like Domas wasn't here for that. Kevin Herter wasn't here for that. Like Malik Monk wasn't here for that. And while we all remember it, these guys aren't thinking nothing about it.
Yeah, I mean, last year they had the stretch. I think it was in December where it was like all winnable games at home. Like they had this huge stretch at home. I think they had like something like 13 games, 12 of which were at home, and the only game that was away was either in LA or it was in Golden State. Like, and they just got clubbed. So, like this team they need to show that's not who they are. But at the same time, I think we should give this group, it is a new group. They do have a new mentality. They do have a new coaching staff. And I know we get caught up in the whole 16 years thing again and again and again. Um, you know, this team, they have very little to do with those 16 years.
Yeah.
And so it is what it is. It's the stigma they have to fight through, but at the same time, like Kevin Herter wasn't here for any of those years, and neither was Monk, and neither was Keegan Murray, and like a lot of these guys, they weren't here
and
for
neither
any of
was
it.
Mike, and that might be just as important as anything else. Mike wasn't around for any of that, and Mike is coaching these players his way. And Terrence Davis has talked about it. De'Aaron Fox has talked about it. You've heard I think it was Terrence that used the term the tough love type of coaching, which in Terrence is twice openly acknowledged to media in the room. Yeah, I blew it. He called timeout, or he pulled me out of the game. He told me what I did wrong and went out there. He has no problem pointing that out, but he points out that's the way I need to be coached. De'Aaron Fox says, something similar, and I can't overstate Mike Brown's importance to everything that we're seeing so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, even with Fox has said it so many times that this is exactly the coach he needed, that he wanted, that he wants. He grew up with coaches that yelled and screamed and demanded a bunch out of him, and he got used to it. It's how he was raised, in the game. And even he said his dad was his football coach and did the same thing. He's used to getting that type of coaching, and it's not that he had a problem with Luke. Actually, he liked Luke. It was that there was that missing ingredient of being held accountable each and every game and not being coddled. Like, I don't think he wants to be like a coddled star. And he's been waiting for, someone who will have accountability and direction, not just towards him, but towards others. And, Mike Brown talked about it at post game last night with how just coachable Terrence Davis is, but he said the same thing about Fox. Like, they have discussions. I saw them have a very animated discussion. I think it was the last game, not the one last night, but the one a couple of nights before, where they were coming off the court, and he was giving Fox an earful. Mike Brown was, and Fox was sitting there like trying to explain himself, and like that's good though. Like, if that's how Fox wants to be coached, and everyone's being respectful, then that's a good way for these guys to move forward together.
Baby steps, I guess, right? I mean, 13 games into the season. Maybe these aren't baby steps. Maybe these are giant leaps. I'm not really sure what they are. All I know is the team is really fun. There's a lot of really likable guys on this squad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amounting to a game that's really enjoyable to watch. Again, 7-6 were the most excited one game over 500 fan base perhaps in history. But you go back to those 0-4 games, and that's the part that I can't get past, is you go back to when they were 0-4. I remember coming in after that, like, I'm okay with how they're playing. I want those close losses to turn to wins, which we talked extensively about. But even at 0-4, I don't think too many people wavered at that moment. It was like they're still playing well, but they've got to figure out how to close games. And now they've done that. And we saw that against the Lakers. We saw it against the Warriors. And then that was just an entirely different type of performance that we saw yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, again, you're just waiting for that one. That one was building. So it was coming.
The downside is there's going to be one the other way at some point too.
Well, of course. And I mean, you could get
That's the lead.
just so people just like look at it, that they easily could get these next two and go 3 games above 500 and give it all back.
Yeah.
Because the next 3 games on the road are really tough.
Yeah.
Again, Memphis, Atlanta, Boston. That's not easy. And so you gotta have the never too high, never too low mantra. But this team just feels like they're equipped to handle it. And again, they've been in every game, and I even would tell you, I think that they got a little chip on their shoulder from Memphis and what happened there, and I think they're ready to go up against Memphis and ready to go, give that team one back.
Right on cue. I love this team. This is the most predictable thing I've ever seen. ESPN sources: suspended All-Star guard Kyrie Irving is nearing completion on the process needed for a return to play and could rejoin the Brooklyn Nets as soon as Sunday against the Memphis Grizzlies. The Kings beat the Nets so bad, the Nets went to Kyrie and said, "Hey, man, how many of these steps have you completed?" None. All right, that's cool, man. Come on, come back.
I sat next to one of their writers last night, and they said this exact thing. They said, all this game is going to do is spark the when is Kyrie coming back conversation.
Yeah, he's 100% right. 100% right.
That's all it was going to do.
Yeah, for those who missed it, I think I stepped on you a little bit. My apologies. Next Tuesday, and it's at Memphis and at Atlanta. That's next Tuesday and Wednesday. Then it's Thanksgiving, and then they're in Boston. And as it seems right now, I think the Kings are the number 2 offensive team in the league. The Boston Celtics are number 1.
Yeah, that Celtics team is good, but all three of those teams are tough. I mean, they can all of them beat you, and they can make you look bad. I think the one thing about the Atlanta game, Fox is. I think that's Fox's 1 triple-double, right? Is against Atlanta. And he likes going up against Trey. And then Kevin Huerter in his first game back in Atlanta. I think that should be interesting. So, I mean, I guess we could have like the Justin Holiday revenge game or something.
Let's go. Justin Holiday. Domas is getting a triple-double this year.
Oh, he's going to have probably 5. I think he has 24 for his career. Yeah. He didn't get a double-double last night. I think... It's because Terrence Davis,
like 7 and 7.
Terrence Davis kept stealing his rebounds. I'm sure he wanted to like just flick Terrence Davis. He stole his rebounds like 4 or 5 times. So like, what are you doing, bro? Hey, that's my rebound.
TD was like, "It's my night. It's my night to shine, baby."
TD, I think he was riding high. He was riding really high off the D'Lo and KC appearance.
I'll take. We're going to take credit for it. I believe that's what it was.
Yeah, is your next promo code going to be carrot cake?
That's not a bad idea.
Carrot cake.
I'm making note of that. Our next promo code will be carrot cake.
Carrot cake.
We do have the idea of like we want to create a sensational shirt with like the number 3 on it to shout out our man Terrence Davis or something. We could be single-handedly responsible for the Kings season going the way that it's going because of that appearance from Terrence Davis.
I just think you should take ownership of it. Just say, yep, that's why it happened.
We'll take what we can get, man.
That's right.
We will not complain, and hopefully we can get another W against San Antonio. I did chuckle. I can't remember if it was at the end of the first half or the end of the first quarter, but I saw KZ Okpala get off the bench. It was like 14 seconds left in the game. Why does Mike do that to him? There are games where KZ Okpala has played like 7 seconds, 3 seconds in the first half, 4 seconds in the second. Why does Mike do that?
Okay, 2 things. Number 1, he's 23 years old and limber, and you can just look at him and say, "Hey, I need you to go in for a couple of seconds." And he's not like if Mike Brown were to ask me, I'd be like, "Okay, bro, I'm gonna need like 37 minutes to warm up, and then you're gonna get me for like, I'll give you for every minute I warm up, I'll give you a second. So I got about 37 seconds I can give you on the court for that 37 minutes. So just tell me way ahead of time." KZ, you can look over and say, "Hey, man, just go in the game. I need you to go out there." And the reason why he does that is there defensive possessions to end the half, and you don't want to get somebody a stupid foul at the end of a half. And so he's trying to conserve fouls, but also putting in a defensive minded guy that maybe comes up with a stop. And he's still a solid defender,
Shout out to Casey, who's just always ready. He's
always
like, "Hey,
ready.
you want me to go play 7 seconds? I got you, coach. 14 seconds, I got you." Now, of course, he wound up playing minutes last night, as did Rashawn Holmes. It was, man, it was nice to see Rashawn out there get a little run and play well when he did.
Yeah, and I'd say with KC too, even if he did have something to say to you, it'd be like 3 words and be like, are you mad? Like, or just like, I'm not sure what's going on there. And he would just go about his day. Yeah, it was good to see Rashawn. It was good to see Alex Len get the big dunk
Yeah.
and like the dream shake. Like, I don't know what was happening.
Everybody was feeling it,
Rashawn Holmes shooting a three from the corner, just running up the score. Like, I'm
feeling
like,
it.
what is happening? That reminds me of the time years ago. We got to go, I'm sure.
Yeah, you're
Derek
not going to
Martin.
get the story out in time.
Derek Martin just started flame throwing and looking at Rick Adelman the whole time as he is running down the court, his own coach. Like, go ahead and stop me. Not good.
We appreciate you so much for being with us. Go become a subscriber, a premium subscriber over at thekingsbeat.com.